same urban site plan can tell two completely different stories depending on how you draw it. One feels like a place you can walk through, and the other reads like a system that you can analyze. So let me show you both and when using each one makes the most sense. In this video, I want to break down how I illustrated the same urban site plan in two different styles using two very distinct workflows. The first style is an illustrated contextual site plan, more pictorial, more atmospheric, and much more focused on place. And the second style is much more abstract. It prioritizes networks, flows, and systems, and reads the city in a more diagrammatic way. Now, the information of this site plan was taken from CADmapper, where I searched for my site, defined the perimeter of the area surrounding my project, and asked it to export it in a CAD format. Now, if you want a dedicated tutorial on this, including other platforms where you can download site data, let me know in the comments. So for the first style, we are going to open up Adobe Illustrator and then import our CAD file to create a new file. Here you can adjust the scale if you know what specific scale your drawing is in. In this case, since I will be only using it for digital purposes, I'll choose scale to fit artboard. Make sure the merge layers option is unchecked. And as soon as the file opens, you want to make sure you can see the layer tab because we're going to be using it a lot. And here you can see that I have a couple of different layers that are going to help me color out my plan and make it look nice and organized. So first thing I'll do is create a new layer, send it below every other layer, and create a rectangle and fill it with a color. In this case, I used this off-white color that I'll probably change and tweak in the future, but I just want a solid background so I can distinguish the color fills from the other elements in the background. Then I'll lock that layer because we don't want to be moving and messing around with it too much. And you want to make sure your file is clean before you start painting it, so just select all of your elements like this, and we will go to our stroke thickness and set it to something like 0.25 points. Here, it's also your chance to clean up your file or close polygons that might be open. So for example, I'll go into my outline layer and create a border just so the color does not spill out or the geometry is not recognized at all. Once the page is working, we can move into the fun stuff, which is adding color and acting like artists for just a bit. In the original file, the only layers that I have separate are parks, buildings, railway, which is not that much anyway, water, and the main building. But the rest of the line work is in the outline layer right here, which you're gonna have to separate. And since we want to highlight different things, like for example, streets, green areas that are public spaces, and paths, we need to separate the different areas inside of our outline layer, which is this one right here. So I'll turn all of the layers off. I'll select everything in the outline layer. Then I'll select the live paint bucket tool, or you can also press the letter K on your keyboard. And I'll start painting inside each area depending on the category. So first, I want to paint the streets, which are the most important structures in any urban plan. So I'll click on any street, and here you can see that it will color them all. I'll hold Alt and drag the layer down to the plus icon. I'll rename the first layer streets, and the second layer I'll rename it public space. I'll select everything in that second layer and change the fill to none and add a light stroke. From here on, I'll use the exact same live paint process to separate the rest of the urban elements, like for example, public space, paths, and secondary areas, each one on its own different layer. This step obviously takes some time, but it's also where you actually start understanding the site. You're not just coloring, you're reading the city. And for example, I always find that the best way to understand the place that you're creating a project in is by visiting it or by drawing it. And this is one way of drawing the site, by separating different urban structures into layers. And since this was such a repetitive process, I won't show you every single step, but let me just show you how it looks like after having all of my different structures painted and separated into each layer. This is how it looks like before adding color. This is how it looks like after adding a color fill. At this point, the drawing is flat, so let's add shadows. I'm going to go to my building layer, select it, and drag it to the plus icon to duplicate it. Then I'll rename the layer below as building shadows. Now we'll select everything in that layer, turn the fill to all black, and lower the opacity to about 20%. You want to use your cursor keys, your up, down, and side to side keys to move your shadow slightly to the side to separate it from the base building, just so we can achieve this nice shadowy effect. A special trick I use is for the main building, you want to manually draw a slightly longer shadow with the pen and leave the fill at about 60%. This will instantly make it stand out much more. Now let's jump onto the trees. And here you can use whatever tree you like best. I used this conceptual tree from our icons and symbols pack, which you can download from our resource library. So just copy the tree and paste it, and make sure you've created a new layer just to keep things organized. Now, before going crazy and starting to copy and paste this tree all over the place, I have a better option. So let's create a brush. Size your tree to a scale in which it's more or less the scale of the tree you're going to place, like this. Then, while having the tree selected, I'll go to my brush tab right here and click on create brush. Select scatter brush. Now, to make things a bit more interesting, you will go to the size drop down menu and select random. Then in the sliders, I'll place the lowest possible size at 75% and the maximum at 105%. I'll repeat the same for spacing and scatter. Depending on your brush size and tree, you might want to test this a few times. There aren't any magic numbers that will work for all brushes. So after you're done, press OK. And go to your paintbrush option and select the brush you just created, which is this one right here. Now the fun starts. Just start painting away everywhere that there's supposed to be some trees around. Here, I usually have Google Maps open on another tab, just so I can get a general idea of the tree distribution. I'm not aiming, of course, to be too exact with each tree, but I do want the plan to communicate a general idea of where the majority of vegetation is concentrated in this area. So you're probably asking yourself, okay, why are you putting elevation trees on a top view plan? Why don't you just put the top view trees? Well, you're right, I did do a version with more traditional top down trees, but personally, I don't know, I found that this mix between elevation and top down view gave a nice touch to the drawing. It probably made it a bit more map-like and reminded me of a bit of these maps that you can see at amusement parks or national parks, and in a way force your eye to see this drawing in a three-dimensional way. So all this to say, put whatever trees you want. I found that these looked really cool. This is what the image looks like before adding trees, and this is what it looks like after adding trees. Finally, I'm going to add some textures to my site plan. Here, I'll use the textures from my natural patterns pack, but again, you can use the default ones from Illustrator or whichever ones you find fit your image best. I'll import the textures I'll be using and leave them on the side. Next, I'll select a sub-layer that contains the color fill of the parks, and with the Alt key selected, I'll drag it upwards and create a copy. I'll take a sample of the pattern I want to use, which in this case is this grass right here. Now I'll right-click, go to transform, go to scale, and I'll make sure only the patterns option is turned on, and I'll lower the scale percentage to about 10 to 20%. I'll repeat the same process for other areas in my plan, like the public space, streets, backgrounds, and even buildings. Here you can get carried away really easily, so select each pattern layer and lower the opacity just a bit. We want to have some texture in our drawing, but we don't want to look grainy and we don't want it to look overdone. This is how the image looks like before textures, and this is how it looks like after adding textures. Finally, we have our site plan done, and with this base, you can either add some text tags to add more technical info on the plan and also highlight some special areas. And this type of site plan is really good at communicating what the context may look like and understanding the natural structures that surround the main project. Not to mention that the trees that we already mentioned, as well as highlighting the main building with a longer and stronger shadow. Now let's jump onto the second style. As you can see, this one is much more conceptual and analytical, and the workflow behind it is completely different. And for this style, I'm working in Rayon Design. What I like about Rayon is that it's new gen, it's an all-in-one CAD tool for architects and designers, and you can work at scale, add dimensions, and create anything from a design detail to a floor plan to a full site plan, all within the same environment. You don't have to have any third-party programs. It's especially well suited for early design competitions and diagrammatic work, where you want to move fast and keep everything flexible in one workflow. The best part is that it has a free tier, and the paid tiers are not that expensive as other traditional CAD softwares. And of course, Rayon is entirely web-based, so if you don't have a really powerful computer setup, this will work perfectly for you. Now in Rayon, I'll create a new model. Then inside, I'll go to import and select DWG. Here, I'll select my file. Then to define the scale, draw a line in a place where you know the dimensions. If they're correct, just press continue. If not, then type the correct dimensions, of course. And then just place your drawing inside. If we go to the left-hand bar, we can open our layer tab, open the import layer, and we can see all of the layers right here. To have more control over my colors, I'll again create a new layer called background, and I'll create a rectangle and place it beneath every other layer. I'll color it in an off-white greenish color, and here I'll also import a color palette reference for my plan. This way we can instantly start creating and getting an idea of how our image is going to look like. Now I'll create a new layer, call it Street Fill, then I'll select the bucket tool, or you can just press the letter B twice on your keyboard. I'll select the color, paint in the streets. Then I'll go into the parks layer and repeat the same process. For this, I'll turn off all of my other layers and just start painting in the areas that have parks in them. Again, this is one of the advantages of this workflow. Painting and iterating feels very direct and very fast. So I repeated this same process for each layer. So just let me break down all of the layers I used. You can see that I also added a water layer, main building, and other buildings. Now we're going to add some shadows to the buildings. Just right click on the building icon and click on duplicate content. Next, we're going to select the layer below, change the fill to black, and with the arrow keys, we're going to shift it diagonally until your image looks kind of like this. In Rayon, you can also use textures and patterns to give some life into your plan. So for this, we're going to select our park layer, duplicate it with the content, and make sure it stays on top. Now we're going to go to the fill button and select hatch. In here, I like to use this turf hatch. Lower the opacity, adjust the scale, and that's it. I'll also add a grainy concrete texture to the streets using the same exact method. I'm also going to create a new layer, and with the polygonal line tool, I'll start to highlight some important urban connections and place them in a different color. This way, my plan is understood better and looks much more analytical and much more deep. Now, one very useful feature inside of Rayon is the block library. All you have to do is go to your left-hand bar, click on blocks, go to libraries, and search, for example, for a tree. Here you will see many trees to choose from. I'll choose this one right here that has a little bit of detail, but not to a point that it's too distracting. So I'll increase the scale of the tree, modify the color by using my color palette reference images, and then by using the Alt key and dragging the tree to the side, I'll start placing my trees all over my image. If we look at how it looks like before adding trees and after adding them, it adds a lot of that conceptual and abstract touch to our site plan. Now we're going to add symbols, grids, icons, etc. So let's open the Rayon homepage on another tab. And in the templates page, we'll go to the symbols page and open the site plan analysis template. Here, I'll select the symbols that I'm going to use and right click and select copy as export. Then we can go back to our original file, create a new layer that says symbols and paste them inside. Here, I'll modify the fill and outline of my symbols just so it matches the same color and tone as my site plan. Then I'll just copy and paste my symbols to the areas that I need for the plan to be understood. I'll also go to my block library and search for title blocks. Here I have a few to choose from, so I'll select this one right here, and I'll paste it within my file and adjust the text, logo, and drawing details. Then I'll go to Layers, New, and create a new view. Now within the title block area, I'll create a rectangle where I can place the view of my site plan. Now I'll go back and add another view to create cropped and close-up angles of the same site plan. That way it can look something like this. So for this kind of diagrammatic and analytical workflow, it's nice that drawing, layout, and sharing can all happen in the same place. Another nice advantage of working this way is that you don't even need to export it if you don't want to. You can just generate a shareable link and send your drawings or pages directly to teammates, reviewers, or to your clients. And since Rayon is entirely web-based, you can also collaborate with others in the same model in real time. Here are the final results. Both drawings come from the exact same site plan and the exact same information, but they communicate two different things. The first style, the illustrated contextual site plan, is great when you want to communicate place. It helps you understand the landscape, the green structure, the relationship between buildings and open space, and it gives a more atmospheric reading of the site. This type of drawing works really well for presentations, juries, and probably moments where you want people to feel the context of the project. The second style is much more abstract and analytical. It's less about atmosphere and more about systems, streets, connections, flows, and urban logic. This kind of drawing is especially useful in early design phases. Now, neither of these styles is better than the other. They're just answering different kinds of questions. The key takeaway is that the way you draw your site plan should depend on what you want to communicate, not just on the software that you're using. Now, I'm curious, which style do you prefer? Style 1, the illustrative contextual plan, or style 2, the more diagrammatic and abstract approach? Let me know in the comments, and if you want more tutorials focused specifically on site plans and urban drawings and floor plans, you can click on this playlist right here. And thank you all for watching. That is it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.